Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of The Power of Ideas, a series where we explore the most influential figure and the ideas that shaped his world, and of course also shaped our world in a way. In this series, we'll dive deep into the life and legacy of Napoleon Bonaparte, one of history's most debated and controversial figures. He was a visionary who reshaped Europe, or was he a ruthless conqueror driven by ambition? In today's episode, we'll begin by examining a pivotal moment in Napoleon's life, the events of October 13, 1806. On this day, Napoleon's brilliance, ambition, and contradictions were in full display. We'll look at how his actions and ideas shaped his reign, and sometimes these ideas still continue to spark debate to this day. So stay tuned in as we uncover the complexities actually of Napoleon's legacy and the ideas that fueled his rise to power. Napoleon Bonaparte is one of history's most debated figures. People either admire him or despise him, and often for very different reasons. His rise, his life and legacy are full of contradictions. Why I repeat this word contradictions? Because a character is never black or white, as history might tell us that he is. On October 13, 1806, Napoleon arrived in Jena, a quiet city that was a town in Thuringia, in Germany, that is known for his historic university. Jena was not a place where major events typically unfolded. Until that day, the town was in chaos as Prussian troops had evacuated the day before, leaving it open for Napoleon to advance with his army, his Grand Armée. Fires broke out across the city and panic spread. Napoleon passed through Jena on his way to camp with his soldiers just outside the town. The next day, October 13, Jena became the site of a decisive battle in which Napoleon crushed the Prussian army, a victory now known as the Battle of Jena. But just the day before, crowds gathered in the streets to watch Napoleon, to watch him pass by. Among them was a man Napoleon had never heard of, but we certainly know today, Georg Wilhelm Friedrich Hegel. A 36-year-old Hegel wasn't yet the most famous philosopher of his time, but he was on the brink of becoming one, having just completed the Phenomenology of Spirit. As he watched Napoleon ride through the city, Hegel later wrote to a friend, famously describing the scene that is often quoted as the spirit of the world on horseback. But the exact words were, "The emperor, the soul of the world. I saw him ride through the city on reconnaissance. Truly, it is an individual who, here, concentrated at a single point, seated on a horse, radiates over the world and dominates it." Hegel himself was a controversial figure. He is often called the father of both Marxism and Nazism, which oversimplifies his legacy. Despite his later association with totalitarian ideas, Hegel was also someone who, every July 14th, the anniversary of the storming of the Bastille, would raise a toast in honor of the revolution. Hegel is often called the father of both Marxism and Nazism because his philosophical ideas influenced both Karl Marx and Nazi ideology, though in very different ways. Marx took Hegel's concept of dialectics, which sees history as driven by conflict and resolution, and applied it to class struggle and material conditions, creating Marxism. Hegel's idea, meanwhile, Nazi thinkers twisted Hegel's idea of the state as the realization of freedom to justify their authoritarian nationalist vision. While Hegel's philosophy focused on the rational development of freedom, both Marxism and Nazism selectively adapted these ideas to support their own agendas, making him an indirect influence on both movements. On October 13, though, of 1806, it's hard to say if Hegel admired Napoleon as the embodiment of the revolution, what's more likely is that Napoleon represented something Hegel had always sought: the meaning of history, the idea of unity, and a higher purpose driving the world forward. For Hegel in that moment, Napoleon was the soul of the world. However, just a few years later, Napoleon would be seen as a tyrant by the Germans during their wars of liberation, hated and expelled from their lands. Since then, the world has been divided on Napoleon. Some view him as a hero who reshaped history, a man who seized power and changed the course of the world. Others despise him as an opportunist, a violent militarist, and a ruthless conqueror. Napoleon remains a figure who is both loved and hated, but in ways that go beyond traditional views. Depending on who you ask, he either embodied the values of the revolution, liberty, equality, secularism, and the republic, or either he betrayed them. Some see him as the symbol of a violent, subversive revolution, while others view him as a traitor to those very ideals. The truth is, we can never fully define who Napoleon was, just as no person can be reduced to a single label. Every personality is complex, and political views often evolve over time. Napoleon's life is a perfect example of this. He started as a revolutionary Jacobin, supporting Robespierre and the Reign of Terror. In 1794, when Robespierre was executed, Napoleon was imprisoned and barely escaped the same fate. Yet, just a decade later, in 1804, this same revolutionary would crown himself Emperor of the French. The key takeaway is that Napoleon wasn't concerned with ideological consistency. He was a pragmatist. He believed ideologies were a mistake and often said that being called an ideologue was the greatest insult. In 1806, Napoleon told a German politician, "You ideologues act according to preordained systems. I am a practical man. I seize events and push them as far as they can go." This statement reflects Napoleon's extreme pragmatism, which at its core comes from his identity as a soldier, a man of war who understands that in battle you cannot follow rigid systems. Napoleon's disdain for ideologues reflects his belief that rigid systems fail to account for the unpredictability of reality. He valued adaptability and decisive action, focusing on seizing opportunities as they arose. His remark, "I seize events and push them as far as they can go," captures this mindset perfectly. In both war and governance, Napoleon viewed strict systems or plans as liabilities. He believed flexibility and improvisation were essential, especially in high-stakes situations like battle, where things can change in an instant. For Napoleon, ideologues are trapped by abstract theories, while he prides himself on being a man of action who shapes events based on their potential, not on preconceived notions. Another quote from Napoleon highlights this point. "Woe to the general who enters the field armed with a system. In war you must act without rigid plans or prejudice." When asked how to make a battle plan, Napoleon famously laughed and replied, "On s'engage, et puis on voit." On voit. We begin, and then we'll see. So that's how Napoleon viewed his views on we start first and then we'll see as we go. This captures his belief then in the heat of battle, flexibility, and quick thinking are far more important than following a set plan. Napoleon brought the same pragmatic approach to politics. He began as a supporter of the revolution, rising through the ranks due to his military prowess. After the fall of Robespierre, at the end of the Reign of Terror in 1794, the Thermidorian reaction led to a more moderate government and a crackdown on radical revolutionaries. During this time, Napoleon was briefly arrested but escaped the guillotine due to his connections and the recognition of his military value. The new government, needing skilled soldiers, soon released him, and Napoleon's talents allowed him to recover politically and rise to prominence, eventually seizing power for himself. Napoleon quickly rose through the ranks, showcasing his remarkable military abilities. His career reached a peak with the Italian campaign of 1796 and 97, where his stunning victories made the name of Bonaparte famous across France and Europe. At the peak of his military success, the young Napoleon quickly realizes that his next opportunity isn't in the battlefield, but in politics. He understands that in France, people are exhausted. They're tired of the disorder, the constant changes in government, and they're tired of the political infighting. They're also wary of the guillotine, where anyone involved in politics risks their life. Napoleon senses that what the French people need is a solution, and that solution could be a strong leader, someone with the army behind him and the glory of victory. Napoleon is clear about this vision. While still in Italy in 1797, he writes, France needs a leader who has become illustrious through glory, not through government theories, speeches, or ideologies that the French do not understand. Today we call him a populist, a pragmatic one, driven by the idea that the people want action, not abstract political theories. It takes Napoleon 2 years to act on his insight, and from 1797, when he writes about the need for a leader with military glory to restore stability in France, to 1799, where he stages the coup d'etat on the 18th of Brumaire. But Napoleon doesn't do this alone. His brother Luciano plays a crucial role. As president of the Council of 500, Luciano agrees to help Napoleon disperse the assembly, using grenadiers to forcefully remove the deputies. Luciano, the most intelligent of Napoleon's brothers, will later be sidelined by Napoleon, who sees him as the only one who could potentially overshadow him. On the 18th of Brumaire, the Bonaparte brothers execute a bloodless military coup, overthrowing the Directory and establishing the consulate, with Napoleon becoming first consul. The 18th of Brumaire is a significant date in French history because it marks the day Napoleon overthrew the Directory. Brumaire was the second month of the French Republican calendar, introduced during the French Revolution as part of an effort to de-Christianize the calendar and create a more let's say, rational system based on the seasons. It roughly corresponds to late October to late November in the Gregorian calendar. This coup sets the stage for Napoleon's rise to power and eventually his coronation as emperor. Public opinion is on Napoleon's side. France desires stability, peace, and security. And the time has come to end the revolution. Almost everyone agrees. Politicians backing Bonaparte, who is gradually transforming into a powerful figure of Napoleon, emphasize that the coup of Brumaire will protect the revolution's achievements, but the era of constant upheaval must come to an end. Napoleon supporters make speeches to reassure the public, saying things like, "We will have a republic, one and invisible, with liberty and equality, a representative system, security and freedom for the people and property, freedom of the press, commerce and industry, a reduction in expenses and lower taxes." Even 220 years later, this basic political program is still relevant in many Western countries, and people want these things, but they no longer want the revolution itself. Revolution has become a bad word. It has a bad vibe that is associated with the guillotine and pretty much anarchy, even though its achievements are now taken for granted. Napoleon's journey is marked by his military brilliance, his pragmatic approach to power, and his ability to shape history by seizing the right moments. As we've seen, his rise to power wasn't just about the battlefield victories, it was about understanding the changing tides of politics and society. But how did he move from military leader to ruler of France? In the next episode, we'll explore the pivotal coup of Brumaire, a moment that would shape the course of history. So stay tuned as we will uncover the complexities of this character and, of course, the power of ideas. I'll see you next time. Bye.